Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Frivolous Writer, where you can join me on this journey of writing my very first novel. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who have been following me since the beginning, but also a big welcome to those of you who have just started following me recently. We did have, for me, what was a big jump in subscribers. We've hit an awesome milestone of 51 subscribers, which is crazy. I broke the 50 mark, which doesn't seem like a lot of people, but honestly, when I first started out on this journey, I really thought that this would just be me by myself talking to my computer, reading what I was writing out loud, talking about the things that got in my way, the struggles that I was experiencing, because honestly, I guess I don't know what I was thinking when I started this. I just felt this, I felt compelled. I felt this like yearning, this feeling, this drive and desire to start something where people could join me and learn maybe or share their experience. And this has been just an awesome opportunity to be able to follow my dream. And I hope that it inspires even just one person or motivates one person to also follow their dream as well, because there is nothing more important than doing what makes you happy. I can't stress that enough, because I can speak from experience living a life where you are doing what you think you should be doing, but never really feeling that fulfillment. You're having some days that are good and some days that are bad, which is normal. That's a normal part of the human experience. But I just never really felt that 100% completeness of my life. And so this has been an awesome and exciting and scary, terrifying time time to be alive for me. And being able to do this on camera in front of everybody makes me weak, kind of. But just a big thank you to those of you who have been joining, subscribing, watching, liking the videos, and commenting. Has been awesome. So thank you. I can't say thank you enough. But with that, y'all, it's Tuesday, which means I'm going to be reading Chapter 8. Oh, God, I can't believe we're here already. And it just reminds me that I need to speed up my writing process, because I've been getting a little bit blocked lately. I sit down to write and I'm not getting to my 1,500 words. I'm forgiving myself for it, but I am writing at least something every day, whether it's my novel or a journal. And I just have to remind myself, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a lot of mental exercises. It's a lot of discipline. It's a lot of like telling myself I have to do this, and like getting myself off my butt to go and do it, just to write. Not really off my butt, because I don't write standing, I write sitting, but you know what I mean. Figuratively, light that fire under me to get me going. And I have to keep myself accountable, and I have to stay super disciplined. But it is also a normal part of writing to feel a little bit of burnout, feel a little bit of fatigue, like mental fatigue and story fatigue and uncertainty of where the story is going to go and how it's going to go. So I'll leave that with all of you. But we're on the 21st of October, which is crazy. We're almost to November. I was really wanting to finish this before November so that I could start a new project in November for NaNoWriMo. So I am still thinking about that. I have still been having ideas percolate for what I want to write there. Maybe something completely different to give myself a break from this story, but keep myself on this path of writing, which I think is also important. I am obsessed with this story. I think about it all the time. I dream about it at night. I wake up and think about it. When I do my meditation every day, it comes into my mind of what it's going to happen, what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, things that I could do differently based on the comments that you guys are giving me, just on my own experience of writing, all of that. So it's been awesome. And with that, everybody, let's get started. So if you remember last chapter, Conrad was fighting with that voice inside his head. He gets a call from his mom while he's in the shower from downstairs. He runs downstairs and his mom lets him know that Maya has now gone missing. So I told you there was a plot hole. I promised you there'd be plot holes. And that's because I wrote some chapters out of order, which felt really correct at the time, but now it's uncovering plot holes. So you'll see what comes, but I've got a fix for it, which is pretty crazy and fantastical in my mind. Maybe it won't surprise any of you, but that's where we're at. So with that, chapter 8. The night was dark. Conrad's eyes had adjusted to it so he could see the room around him. Everything in his room was exactly as it should be. The books on the shelves hadn't been removed. His desk still had all his schoolwork laid out exactly where he left it. Eli's journal placed open on top of everything. It laid there, open to the page of Eli's drawing that had the shadow. But even though everything looked normal, the air in the room felt different, thicker somehow, pressing in on him from all directions. The shadow in the corners didn't move, but they seemed to be waiting. A faint hum, almost below hearing, vibrated just under the surface of silence. He blinked several times, telling himself that it was just nerves, that the world wasn't breathing around him. The thought of everything that had been happening over the last few days was weighing on his mind. His life will never be the same. He sat up in his bed, contemplating the last vision he had. How? He thought. How does this keep happening? His pulse raced beneath his skin, a small tremor running through his fingers as he stared at the journal. Maya's face flashed across his memory. Her laugh, the way she tilted her head when she didn't believe him, the disappointment on her face the day before she disappeared. He hadn't stopped replaying that moment in his mind. He'd wanted to prove the blink to her, to show her that it was real, but nothing happened. Then she was gone. The guilt pressed harder than gravity. He closed his eyes and focused on one thought as tightly as he could, the thought of Eli, alone in his room. He could feel the fear that Eli had, the urgency of needing to talk to him. He could feel everything intensely. Conrad clenched his eyes closed as tight as he could. The feels kept intensifying. His heartbeat sped up, and a hum grew louder in his ears than a pop. He opened his eyes. He wasn't in his room. He quickly turned around. He wasn't sure where he was. Scanning the area, he was somehow outside. Unfamiliar. It was a neighborhood, but not one that he knew. There was a purple tint to everything, like the sun is just going down at dusk. A bit of light is cast from the horizon, but there was no sun. There was no shadows being cast, just a shade of dark purple. He looked left and right. He was in the middle of the street, other than the color of everything. The neighborhood looked relatively normal. Houses on either side of the street, cars parked in the driveways. No lights were on in the houses, as far as he could see. Aside from himself, the streets were empty. The air didn't move. It wasn't cold or warm. It was just there, dense and still, clinging to his skin. The smell was faintly metallic, like the air before lightning strikes. He took a cautious breath and felt the world press back, as if even the act of inhaling disturbed something ancient and sleeping. His ears rang from the leftover hum of the blink, and beneath that the silence grew immensely, so immense that it began to roar. The realization that he was all alone hit him. He could feel his heart rate start to increase again. The fear of being lost swept his body. "Walk," he commanded himself, in spite of the fear. "Walk," he commanded again. This time his body responded. His knees trembled, resisting his own command as they didn't trust the ground beneath them. Every step was a test of reality. The pavement looked solid, but it didn't feel like concrete. It gave slightly, like the surface of a dream. He glanced up at the sky, if there even was a sky. There was no stars, No clouds, just a vast dome of violet haze that never seemed to end. He moved forward in a mechanical motion, slowly and deliberately. He continued to look around himself, preparing himself in case there was danger. He stayed in the middle of the street. It looked endless to him, stretching out to the horizon. No crossroads that he could see, no turns, just an eerie purple road. His footsteps made a faint, almost liquid sound. The road seemed to absorb the noise before it could echo. Each house on either side of him was the same, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly still. Curtains hung unmoving behind black windows. The world didn't breathe. The silence became so absolute that he started to hear his own heartbeat pounding in his eardrums, a slow, terrified drumbeat that reminded him he was still there, still real, for now. He tried to walk as lightly as he could without tiptoeing. It was awkward, since he felt like his body was moving like a robot. It was just a faint tap on the cement road, but even that caused the slightest echo. He kept going. The echo seemed to follow him a half-second late, like a copy of himself tapped just out of sync. He turned his head slightly and thought he saw motion out of the corner of his eye. A faint ripple in the purple haze, the suggestion of a shape. But when he turned, fully, nothing. Only the still houses, their windows staring blankly back at him. He swallowed hard. His throat was dry. Why here? He thought in his mind. He was worried that even the thought might cause a noise in this place. It was so quiet. He wasn't scared of the blink bringing him to new places anymore. He almost felt like a professional, just an old hat. His mind turned to the investigation, staying vigilant of his surroundings, knowing that there's a reason it was here. This was the exact place and time that he was supposed to see in order to solve the mystery of Eli. But this time, he knew deep down it wasn't about Eli. It was about Maya. Everything in him pulled toward her. Some invisible magnetism, guiding his mind even when his body refused to move fluidly. He pictured her standing in her room, arms crossed, waiting for him to prove this strange ability again. He wanted to tell her he could do it now, that he would find her no matter where she'd gone. The thought strengthened him. He made it approximately 5 houses down the street. It was hard to tell. Every house and car in the driveway looked identical to the one before. He turned around to see his progress, but he was unsure exactly how far he'd gone. He turned around and faced forward again, but it all just looked the same. The feeling rushed over him. Had he been walking in place, like on a treadmill? Just as the thought came into his mind, he saw a light on the second floor window flash on and then off. It was so quick that if he wasn't looking right at it, he might not have seen it. His breath caught in his throat. That flicker of light. He was sure it meant something, a signal or a warning. The brief burst of illumination had no color of its own, just a sharp cut in the purple, like a slit in the fabric that revealed nothing behind it. He waited, heart hammering, half expecting to see it again. Nothing. The silence deepened. Somewhere in the distance, or maybe inside his own skull, he thought he heard a soft ring. As quickly as he could, without running or making any sound louder than he already was, he made his way over to the house. He stared, fixed at the window. He didn't want to miss it if the light flashed again. Or worse, confuse the houses and get to the wrong identical house. The closer he got, the less real the world became. The air thickened, resisting him. The house loomed impossibly large now, larger than it had appeared on the street, its edges bending slightly, as if the angles of the walls didn't obey normal geometry. His body tensed with every step, expecting something, anything, to move, to breathe, to react, but the world remained suffocatingly still. As he approached the house, he walked up the driveway, rather than cutting through the grass. It was an old instinct, drilled into him by his mother. He heard her voice in his head telling him it's rude to walk in someone else's grass, but this didn't feel like grass. The color was off. It wasn't green or even brown, dead grass. Everything about this place felt off to him. The lawn shimmered faintly, every blade blending slightly toward him as he passed, like the world itself recognized his intrusion. He kept his gaze locked on the window where the light had appeared, trying not to let his imagination fill the silence with phantom sounds. His breath echoed in his head. He could feel sweat forming at the base of his neck despite the stagnant air. He found himself at the front door. Open the door. Just open the door, he coaxed himself. Lift your arm and open the door. This time his body responded. Slowly he raised his hand and clutched the knob. It didn't feel like cold brass. It didn't feel like anything, just neutral. He felt the pressure of the object, but no other sensation, like when the dentist freezes your face before a tooth extraction. Just that numb pressure, as if his hand wasn't his own. He turned the knob and slowly opened the door. The door had opened too easily, swinging inward with no resistance, no creak, no sound at all. The air that greeted him was heavy, old, unmoving. A smell lingered, a faint mix of ozone and dust, like a place sealed off from time. The purple glow followed him inside, staining everything it touched. So that color itself seemed a memory. His pulse thudded dully in his throat. Inside looked identical to Eli's house, identical with the exception of the color. The house had the same dark purple hue. The lights were turned off and the house was empty. No furniture, no life. Conrad moved cautiously inside, still moving in the robotic, jerky way, somehow even slower than before. The silence was unbearable. It pressed into his ears, hollowing his head until he could hear the faint hiss of his own nervous system. Every object that should have existed here, the couch, the shelves, the carpet, were gone. But he could still see the outlines where they should have been, like ghosts of furniture burned into his memory. It was Eli's house, but hollowed out, as if someone had taken the idea of it and drained all life from it. Directly in front of him were the stairs to the second floor. He looked to his left where he had spent so many days on the couch watching TV and playing video games with Eli. Now just empty. He took the stairs towards the room with the flashing light. His legs felt impossibly heavy. Each stair rose like a small hill. He kept his hands on the railing, but it felt wrong, solid yet not textured, as if made of thought instead of wood. He kept his gaze fixed on the top, where the hallway yawned open. He could almost hear laughter there, echoes of a memory that wasn't quite gone. Maya had been here too, sitting between him and Eli, teasing them for arguing over the game. The sound of her voice felt close enough to touch, and then vanished as soon as he tried. At the top of the stairs, there was the hall leading to 2 rooms. He was very familiar with this, as he had been here hundreds of times before. He still moved as quietly as possible. Unsure of what made the light flash, the door to his room was closed. Every door in the house was closed. His footstep made no sound in here. There was no creaking on the floor. It had a deadening acoustic quality, no sound at all. When he got to the door of the room, he stopped. He took a quiet, deep breath. He could hear his heartbeat, but he couldn't hear his heartbeat, but he could feel it. And it was so strong, he was sure you could have seen it pounding through his shirt. He looked down to make sure it wasn't. He pushed the door open. The hallway seemed to stretch behind him even as he moved forward, as if the house didn't want to let him leave once he'd entered. His hand trembled as it touched the door. He thought of Maya again, her hand brushing his as she leaned over the journal, eyes wide with curiosity. The memory anchored him just enough to push through the fear. The door swung open, silent, effortless. Inside the room, it looked exactly like Eli's room. It had all the furniture. His desk, his bed, it was all there. Muscle memory took over, and he stepped inside, not aware of the weight of his steps or the sound that he made. He made it to the middle of the room before he felt a hard thud against the back of his head. It jolted him forward. His vision went blurry. He fell forward and bounced off Eli's bed before falling onto his back on the floor. A figure of a person stood in his line of sight before he lost consciousness. The pain was immediate and white-hot, a burst of light filling his vision. No, not light, but pressure, expanding from the inside of his skull. He gasped and tried to reach out, to blink again, to think of Maya, but the world folded in on itself. The purple walls closed tighter. His heartbeat pounded louder than the sound should exist in this place. He caught a glimpse of the figure standing above him. Its features lost the glow. He tried to speak, but the air wouldn't move in his lungs. Everything narrowed to a single point of color, a deep violet that burned into his vision. He thought he heard his name whispered, not by the figure, but by Maya, distant and desperate. Then the world fractured into darkness. He fell into it willingly, the last of his strength spent. The purple dissolved into black, and he could no longer tell whether his body was still lying on the floor or if he had blinked again, somewhere further, somewhere worse. So chapter 8 is done. First draft. Even as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I missed this or that word's wrong. And part of that is because I dictate to my computer after I write it from my journal. But I'm really liking the tone. I'm really liking the feeling. And the story, I feel, is kind of cool. Like, I feel like uncovering the story as it's going is giving me more excitement towards the journey of what it feels like to write. And it really makes me, it reinforces that feeling that I get that I really am a pantser. Like, I really like just writing and uncovering things. And what I've been doing lately also is word choice. So like thinking of the feeling I'm wanting, and then, or wanting Conrad to experience or whomever to experience, but then not knowing the word because my vocabulary is just not where I need it to be. But then I'll go and I'll find a word. So I'll ask Google, like, here's what I'm wanting. What word would describe this? And then writing that word down. So it doesn't always work because sometimes I know that there's a word, like it's right on the tip of my tongue, but it's not coming to me. And then when I go and put in what I'm trying to say in Google, it doesn't really quite work. It'll give me very basic words, like rudimentary words, not words that are expansive to the feeling that I'm trying to articulate. So that's something that I'm trying to do. So if anyone has any ideas or any best practices that you use to make sure that you can write these words, so for all of you experienced writers watching, tell me, how do you select the perfect word? I might do a video on that in the future. Because that's something that's really, I still feel it's stopping me from progressing. And that's something that I want to focus on. And then the other thing is, is the plot hole starting to form for you? If not, that's okay. If it is, put in the comments what you think the plot hole is. Because as I'm reading it, I'm like, it's so glaring to me. But that's because I know a few chapters in advance where it really is going to be very obvious to everyone. But I wonder, because this is where it's really started. It started in chapter 7, like very much so in chapter 7, but then it's starting here. It's really coming to life here as well. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I can't wait to continue sharing this journey with all of you. If you know anybody that you think would be interested, share these videos with them. Get this word out. Let's build this community of people, of writers, of artists who want to share what we know, our knowledge with each other, so then we can continue to build towards our dream of whatever your dream might be. So for me, being a writer, for my job, which would be amazing, but even if it doesn't become my job, just writing for the sake of writing and the joy of writing and the adventure of writing. So with that, I will see you all on Friday, everybody. Have a good day.